Zoom inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah. So as we were speaking about the importance of prayer, the challenge always comes up between pizza and learning about prayer. This was one of our planned tests that we wanted to see to get people ready for the real test in life, inshallah, because there's no prayer right now. Hopefully you've all prayed Zohar. We'll continue with wudu, inshallah. So it's essential that we make wudu before we perform our prayer. And wudu is something that is a requirement in Islam. I know some people translate it as ablution. I don't even like that translation anymore, because if you ask the average American who is not Catholic what ablution means, they probably can't tell you. So stick with the Arabic word, wudu. When you make wudu, you are going to be cleaning yourself and washing some parts of your body before you stand in front of Allah. And there's many reasons behind performing wudu. Number one, it cleans you a little bit. You wash certain parts of your body and you become clean. Right? Some people, they don't even wash themselves, throughout the day. So Muslims historically, they've been the cleanest civilization throughout history, because many people, they didn't even used to wash themselves. They wouldn't take a bath. They wouldn't, brush their teeth. People would be smelling and stuff. Historically, Muslims used to use a lot of water, more than the average civilization. But for what purpose? They're not wasting it. To be clean. Because cleanliness is a part and parcel of Islam. And part of that is making wudu and washing yourself. So, it, number one, cleans you. Number two, when you make wudu, your sins start to fall off. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us this. So every time you make wudu, you've done something wrong, you've spoken bad about someone, you were lying, you were gossiping. Every time you rinse your mouth and you spit out the water, the sins are coming out of your mouth. The stuff that you shouldn't have been looking at, the videos that you shouldn't have accidentally swiped on, you wash your face and the sins start to be removed from those things. So there are spiritual benefits to wudu as well. And Allah made it easy for us. We don't have to take an entire shower every single day or every single time we're going to pray. We can just wash some parts of our body. So here is a very brief recap or overview of wudu. Some of you know most of these things. Some of you just need a reminder or a refresher. And we're not going to get into the little technical details so much. But here's an overview. So the first thing you do is you have the intention that you're going to be making wudu. So you think consciously, I am going to be cleaning myself. I'm going to wash myself because I'm going to pray. Or I'm going to be, touching the Quran or something like that. So you make wudu for that purpose by having the intention in your heart. You don't have to say anything. As long as you understand that you're making wudu, you're not just randomly washing your face or whatever, that is sufficient for having the intention, number one. Number two, you begin by remembering Allah. So you say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Anything that's of significance in Islam, you begin with Bismillah. Bismillah means, I begin with the name of Allah by mentioning the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful, of this act. So any action that you do, you begin with Bismillah, and wudu is not one of those exceptions. You say Bismillah before you make wudu as well. And if you're going to be going into a bathroom where there's a toilet, say Bismillah before you walk in, and that'll suffice. Then you begin by washing your hands. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to wash both of your hands 3 times up to your wrists. So you wash your hands, now your hands are clean. Right? If you got anything in between your fingers, make sure you wash them out too. Step number 2 is you're going to clean your teeth by rinsing your mouth. But if you have a toothbrush or if you have a miswak, a little toothstick or something like that, you can brush your teeth at this time, and then you're going to rinse your mouth, and you're going to bring water in, the whole thing, swirl it around, spit it out, and you're going to do that 3 times. Then you're going to cup your right hand, and you're going to bring the water into your mouth. We just did that. Then you're going to cup your right hand again, you're going to bring water into your nose, and you're going to sift the water into your nose, and then you're going to blow it out. And if you've got something else in your nose, you can use your left hand to clean the inside of your nose. And you're going to be doing that 3 times as well. Then you're going to cup both of your hands. You're going to fill them with water, and you're going to close your eyes, because you don't want to get water all in your eyes. It's not good for your vision. and you're going to wash your entire face. Right? Removing the microphone, removing the glasses, and you're going to wash your entire face. And you want to make sure that you're getting from the side, this side of the earlobe, start of the earlobe to this side. And you want to make sure you're getting from the top of your forehead, where your hair normally grows, to the bottom of your chin in length. So you have width and length. Make sure, some people they just put water like this and they skip this entire side here. Make sure that you're washing your face properly, and that's one of the reasons why you wash 3 times. So we're going to do this 3 times, and you wash your face 3 times. If you have a beard, you just comb through your beard with some wet fingers if your beard is a little bit long. Then you're going to wash your arm. You're going to roll up your sleeve, and you're going to wash your right arm first, all the way up to and including the elbow. And you're going to do this 3 times. Then you're going to do your left arm, up to and including the elbow. You're going to wash 3 times. And then you're going to wet both of your hands. And this time you're not washing. This time you're going to be wiping. So you're going to wet your hands, just a little bit of water, and you're going to wipe your head. Going back around, trying to wipe the entire head. But you're not washing it. You're not going to cup your hand. You're going to be like throwing water. This is not the time for you to be styling your hair or something like that. So you're going to just simply wipe your head. 1 time is sufficient. Some schools of thought, they say you can do this 3 times as well. So you do that. And then when you have some water after you wipe, you have a little bit of water left on your fingers. Then you're going to just clean your ears. Inside, outside, you can do a little bit on the back. You're going to clean your ears with that water as well. Now you don't need to like go inside your ear and take everything. It's just, you're kind of wiping your ears. So you wipe your head, you wipe your ears, and then the last thing you do is your feet. So you're going to take off your socks, unless you know all the rules about wiping over socks, then you can do that. But if you don't, you take off your socks. If you're in a sink, you're going to lift up your foot. This is why Muslims are supposed to be very flexible. They're more flexible than the average person, because they can lift up their foot and they're going to put it inside the sink, and they're going to wash the right foot 3 times, up to and including the ankle, making sure to get in between the fingers. And then when that's done, 3 times with the right foot, you're going to lift up your left foot and you're going to put it in the sink, and you're going to wash your left foot 3 times, making sure to get including the ankle and in between the toes when you're washing. When your wudu is done, it's recommended for you to say the declaration of faith, which is what people say when they enter into Islam. Say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I declare that there is no God but Allah alone, who has no partner, and that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. So this is an overview of basically how wudu is performed. And there's a lot of other details and discussions, and do you do this or do you do that, but this is a very basic reminder about how wudu is performed. Now, you're supposed to perform wudu in the order that we mentioned here. You're supposed to not interrupt when you're making wudu. So if you're in the middle of wudu, you get a phone call, you can take the phone call later. Don't have a conversation and then resume your wudu. It's recommended not to do that. You are supposed to make sure you use enough water to make sure that you're getting, so some people when they're washing their foot, they don't want to lift up their foot or they have some injury or something, they'll just take some water and then throw it on their foot. Alright? You got to do a little bit more than that. You got to make sure that you're using enough water that it's getting completely to the point where that limb is soaked enough that water starts to drip off. That's the bare minimum of washing that part. So these are just some of the things there. Now this is how you make wudu. You have to make sure that you don't miss any essential place of wudu. The essential parts of wudu are the ones that are specifically mentioned in the Quran. You need to make sure that your entire face is completely washed. You don't miss anything. You need to make sure your arms completely, you're not missing anything. And when you wash each arm, by the way, keep in mind, if you have a watch on, and if your watch is a little bit tight, water may not get underneath there. So what do you got to do? You got to move your watch. So if you're washing, you move your watch a little bit. If you have a ring on your finger, you move your ring a little bit. If your ring is tight, you need to make sure that water gets to every single one of those parts when you're making wudu. Right? And that becomes the whole issue of, I'm not going to get into a long discussion, but when it comes to having some glue on your hand, you have to remove that. When it comes to nail polish, same issue. When it comes to so many other things, there are issues you need to think about. Is there anything that is blocking me from washing these parts that need to be washed? Because if you're blocking and the water is not reaching that part, then it's a problem. Your wudu will not be fulfilled. So make sure that the water reaches every single place that needs to be washed. What breaks your wudu? Okay, so the short, summarized explanation is there are three main things that break your wudu. Number one, anything comes out of your private parts. A little bit of urine, a little bit of stool, pre-seminal fluid, those type of things will break your wudu. Right? Regular, normal cervical mucus, vaginal discharge is not going to break your wudu. That's a long fiqh discussion. Second category is passing gas. So that gas that comes out is going to break your wudu as well. It's number two. Category number three is if you lose consciousness. By sleeping, by fainting, and hopefully no one here through intoxication, all of these things are going to break your wudu. So these are the three things, three categories, where if any of these three things happen, your wudu is gone, and you need to make another wudu again. It's always recommended to perform a new wudu before the next prayer, but if you didn't, it still lasts until as many prayers as you're going to pray, until one of these things happens. So this is wudu. Now before you start praying, not only are you making wudu, but before you stand, because you're standing in front of Allah, just think about the meaning of wudu, by the way. You're washing yourself and you're going to be nice and clean and presentable in front of Allah. If you were going to go and meet your favorite celebrity, right? So YouTube, TikToker, influencer, whatever it is, and you're like, I got an appointment. Imagine you have a 5-minute appointment, you get to meet the person that you love the most. And you're like, you get 5 minutes with that person. Would you come in there all sweaty and smelly and your shirt's all messed up and everything, and you'd go and meet that person? No. You would take some time to at least look decent, smell a little bit nice, and say, this is my 5 minutes, this is my 10-minute appointment with someone I really value, someone that's very important to me. When you make wudu, this is exactly what you're doing. You're standing in front of Allah. Nobody's more valuable, nobody's more important than your meeting with Allah. So you make sure when you're making that wudu, you're preparing yourself to go in front of Allah. If you would be nicer in front of somebody else, then you say, well, where are your priorities? Ask yourself that. So this is number one. Before you pray, you make wudu. Number two, you actually clean your clothes and your body and your place of prayer where you're going to be there. You make sure you clean it from any impurities. So if there's any blood, if there's any urine, if there's any vomit or something like that that's there, you have to make sure these three things are clean. Your clothes, your body, inside, and your place of prayer where you're going to be standing. That's usually why we use a prayer carpet or something. In case there's something on the floor, we're praying in a clean place. Number three, you need to cover your body properly to show your humility and your modesty in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if nobody else is there, you still have to cover yourself. So there are some people, they just think like, oh yeah, if I go to the masjid, I'm gonna, dress one way. And even, we need some improvement even on the dress in the masjid. We have some signs. But people, when they're alone, they say, it's just me and Allah. Allah knows everything, Allah knows everything about me anyways, right? So He can see me when I'm sleeping. He can see me when I'm in the shower. Yes, that's true. But when you're standing in front of Allah for prayer, even if nobody else is around, at minimum, you need to cover, it's called your aura, the parts that absolutely need to be covered normally. So there's certain parts that need to be covered, and I'm going to mention to you what they are. So for men, the minimum is the navel to the knee, they need to be covered. So somebody comes and let's say they sleep in their boxer shorts or their underwear, and then they wake up for Fajr and they're like, oh, I'm just going to make wudu. You can't just go on the prayer carpet like with your shirt on and your underwear on, you just pray. You have to make sure that you have your parts covered properly, at least between here, and it's recommended to cover something with your shoulders, like a shirt that's going to cover your shoulders as well. So this is for men. And for women, they need to be wearing the proper dress as well. So that means that everything needs to be covered with the exception of the face, the hands, and the feet. And it should be loose clothing that is not tight and form-fitting. and it should be clothing that is not transparent. So basically the rules of hijab. And I know Shaykha just said, her Shaykh didn't mention hijab, but since she threw it in there already, I'm going to throw it in there as part of my presentation anyways. So I have a slightly modified approach there. So yes, you need to make sure that all of this is covered before you pray, even if there's nobody around, because you're standing in front of Allah. Fourth thing you do is you're going to determine the qibla. You're going to face the direction of Mecca. So when we pray, we're praying in this direction. Wherever you are, you're going to calculate where the direction of the qibla is, what's called the qibla. Qibla means facing the direction of Mecca, of wherever you are. So if you're in California, Southern California over here, what is the direction of Mecca? What do you say? 24 degrees to northeast. Yeah, so it's called north-northeast. So this is north, right? West, east, south. So if you have northeast, and then north-northeast, it's between north and between northeast. Say, well, why that? If I open up a map, and I'm looking at a flat map, the map on my wall, if I draw a straight line between Southern California and between Mecca, it's not north-northeast. It's going in this direction. So wait a minute, something's not right. Why would I be going on top? Well, because the world is not flat. The earth is not flat. So that flat map is actually not accurate. It's just a projection. So if you look at a spherical globe, and you were to take a string, and you were to put one part of the string on Southern California and one part of the string on Mecca, and try and find the region, the location where it's going to be the shortest length of string, you're going to find that it's actually north-northeast, and that's why airplanes fly over that direction. So the shortest distance to Mecca is going to be the qibla, because we know that the earth is spherical, mostly spherical. So technically, if you're standing right in front of the Kaaba, right, if you turn around, you put your back to the Kaaba, you'll be facing the other side of the Kaaba. But it's a very long way of going around, right? So that's not the way. You go with the shortest direction. So how do you figure that out? The easiest way is to just open up a compass and figure out what's the direction of north-northeast, or use one of those pray apps. Hopefully that doesn't track you and sell your data to the government. And you go ahead and utilize that, and it's going to tell you exactly where you are, regardless of your location. So this is a requirement. If for some reason, you calculated the qibla, and then somebody all of a sudden, let's say you're praying, somebody all of a sudden says, hey, wait a minute, so you saw the boat picture that Shaykha put up here. Let's say someone taps you and says, hey, wait a minute, you miscalculated. It's actually this way, and you're in the middle of prayer. What do? You just move. So if you trust the person, they're going to just move you. You just move in the middle of prayer, and you don't need to restart your prayer. What if your prayer is done, and you tried, and you're like, you know what? These apps don't work sometimes. These compasses, maybe there's a plural for compass, I don't know, kampai or something. But anyways, these compasses, they don't always work. So they're sometimes off, especially if there's a magnetic field, or if there's been nuclear explosions testing nearby, the magnetic field is off. So what if you're wrong? Do you have to repeat your prayer? And the scholars say, if you finish the prayer and you made your best judgment by trying to figure out the location, you don't need to repeat the prayer in this situation. So this is checking to make sure that you're facing in the direction of the Kaaba, the Qibla. Okay, this is very, very important. And I'm just going to mention one more point. Some people, they have this notion that, when it comes to the 5 prayers, they're just going to sit in their car and pray. I hear this from a lot of people. They say, I go to the mall and I just pray in my car. I just sit down, in whatever direction I'm facing, I'm praying. Look, if you're doing this on an airplane, it's different. But if you're just doing this in a car where you could step out, this is not allowed, because you're missing 2 main requirements of prayer. Number 1, it's required for you to stand if you're able to stand. And number 2, it's required for you to face the direction of Mecca, the Qibla, if you can face the direction of Mecca. This hadith about the Prophet, peace be upon him, performing prayers while he's on his camel and all that, this is for the optional prayers. It's not for the 5 daily mandatory required prayers. An airplane is different. Right? See, if you're in your car and you're sitting down, you could just get out and you'll be standing and you can face the direction of Qibla. If you're in an airplane, right, and there's no other space, you're in economy class, if you get out of the plane to pray, what's going to happen? You're dead. and suicide is not allowed in Islam. So therefore it's an exception to the rule. Airplane is very different from your car. So please do not open the door on the airplane, but please open the door on your car and step out and perform the prayer. Find a safe spot. Have someone watch over you, or ask a security guard or something. So it is required for you to face the direction, face the Qibla. Also, make sure that the time for prayer has come in. Sometimes you pray before time comes in, accidentally you didn't check, you have to repeat your prayer. You have to make sure the time has come in. And lastly, you have to have the intention. You should know which prayer you're performing. So if you think, I think, okay, I'm going to pray Asr prayer, it's Asr prayer. Allahu Akbar, and then you start, and then you're like, oh wait a minute, it's Zohar time. You have to restart your prayer. Because having the correct intention, and knowing, intention means knowing at bare minimum what prayer you're performing, is a prerequisite of prayer. If you break one of the prerequisites, you gotta restart the prayer because it doesn't count. So these are the things that we need to do before we start prayer. Now we're gonna get into the actual prayer itself, in terms of what we say and what we do. So should I keep going or should I break here? Keep going? Okay. Alright, so our 5 prayers consist of either 2, 3, or 4 units. 2, 3, or 4 rak'ahs. And you can call them cycles. Right? You're going to repeat a lot of what you do and a lot of what you say in each one of these units. So there's a 2-unit prayer, there's a 3-unit prayer, there's a 4-unit prayer. There's 5 prayers in Islam. There's 5 prayers every day. Who can tell me, real quick, shout out, I want anyone who's under the age of 12. 12 or younger. You're the only ones who are allowed to answer. What's the first prayer of the day? Just shout it out. Fajr. Second prayer of the day? Zohar. Third prayer of the day? What was it? Asr. Fourth prayer of the day? Maghrib. And fifth prayer? Isha. Now we need the number of units. I'm going to call on somebody. Who can tell me the number of units of all of these in order who's 12 or younger? Give me the first 3 and then give me the last 2. Go, give me the first 3. 2 for Fajr, 4 for Zohar, 4 for Asr, 3 for Maghrib, 4 for Isha. Very good. So these are the number of units in each one of these. So 2, 3, and 4 unit prayers. If we learn the 2-unit prayer, then we can figure out the rest of the 3 and the 4-unit prayer. So we're going to start by focusing on how a 2-cycle or 2 rak'ah prayer is going to be performed. So the first thing you do is you start with standing position. So you've done all those other things. You've already made wudu, you're facing the qibla, you have the intention, you got the correct clothes on, your clothes are clean, your place of prayer is clean, your body is clean, and whatever other that 6th one thing was. And you got all those things ready to go and you're just about to start. So right before you begin, you remind yourself that you're standing in front of Allah for a moment. Your head will be slightly lowered. So you don't want your head, you don't want to start like this. You're not looking around, head is slightly lowered. You're going to be looking around the direction of where you're going to be prostrating, like the end of the prayer carpet, kind of. And now you're about to start. So what you do is, this is around the time where you're going to have the intention, thinking about, I'm going to be entering into prayer right now. Forget everything else that is distracting you away. And before you start, by the way, you want to make sure that you have had a little bit of gap between all the other things you're doing. One of the worst things you can do is you're sitting there having like a text message conversation with someone, say, I gotta pray, be right back. You turn it on and you start, Allahu Akbar. That is still in your head. If you're watching a video and then you're like, oh wait, let me take a break, pause, put it in your pocket, and then you start prayer. You need to take a few moments to kind of get yourself back, remove what's in your mind so that you can actually clear your head for prayer. One of my teachers used to say, he says, think of starting prayer like the ceiling fan. Have you ever seen a ceiling fan? When you turn off the ceiling fan, what happens? It's still going, and then it slows down, and finally comes to a stop. That's your mind. Whatever you were looking at, whatever you were watching, whatever you were doing, wait for the ceiling fan to stop before you go and you start your prayer. Because your mind, your thoughts need to dissipate. So now you're standing and you're about to start your prayer. So you're going to be standing up, hands to your sides. Your feet should be pointing forward for the most part. You're not supposed to be like sideways or something like that. Your feet should be spread approximately somewhere between shoulder width to a little bit closer. Your feet should not be more than shoulder width. You're not trying to stretch to do the splits. That can be done in the morning. That's what I do. That's part of my morning routine. I'm not there yet, not even close. But your feet are not supposed to be beyond shoulder length. Why? Because if you're praying with somebody else, then you can't touch their shoulder. So don't go beyond that. But your feet should not be touching each other either. So they should be somewhere in between, right? Around that shoulder length, or maybe a little bit less than that. And your eyes are focused on the ground where you're going to be prostrating. And if you want to, if you're getting distracted because there's things around you, you're allowed to close your eyes. Otherwise, the normal default position is to keep your eyes open, but you're kind of looking down. Imam Malik said, there's another opinion, you can look forward as well, but generally looking down is what most scholars have said. So this is a stance and a position of somebody who's focused, and they're about to start something very, very important. So that is your standing. Now you're going to begin by raising your hands. Now raising your hands can be done in many different ways. It can be done all the way up to the ears. It can be done a little bit lower to shoulder length. But you're going to raise your hands and you're going to say, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar means Allah is the greatest. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. We say this all the time, but we don't really reflect fully on it. See, Allahu Akbar means God is the greatest, but that's not the actual linguistic meaning of it. The linguistic meaning of Akbaru means greater. Because whenever you use something like Akbaru, Asgharu, Aktharu, any of these, this is a comparative noun, which basically means one thing is different than another. How is it different? It's either better or worse or whatever. So Allahu Akbar is actually missing something afterwards. It's Allahu Akbaru min. Allah is greater than X variable. Fill in the blank. Allah is greater than what? Allah is greater than everything. And when you say Allahu Akbar, the reason why it didn't say, the reason why it was left this way, there's a different form to say Allah is the greatest. This was not the form. The form was Allah is greater, and then there's something missing. It's called ellipses. It's called hazf in Arabic. And Allah left it there as a sign of eloquence, because anything that's distracting you in your prayer, every time you hear yourself saying Allahu Akbar, and you're thinking about your dinner, you should think Allahu Akbar min my dinner. Allah is greater than my dinner, or what I'm going to be planning. And if you start thinking, I have a final exam coming up, you say Allahu Akbar min imtihani. Like Allah is greater and better and more important than my exam that's going to be coming up. So it's a constant reminder that Allah is greater than every other thing that comes into your mind that's distracting you. And one of the ways to help you focus. So we start the prayer by saying Allahu Akbar. And when we raise our hands, scholars say we're doing two things. Number one, when you raise your hands like this, it's a form of surrender. Alright? If somebody comes, says like, stick them up, what do you do? Okay, I surrender. You're in the battlefield or something, and they're like, okay, this is not working. I give up, I surrender. Part of you raising your hands is you surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing that the scholars mention is that all that stuff that's distracting you in your mind, it's all moving around. When you raise your hands, just imagine like all the stuff in my mind, just get out of here. You're wiping it all clean, and you're like, I want all of this to be starting fresh. I'm going to start my prayer. I'm in the middle of prayer right now. These other thoughts don't matter. They're not important to me. I'm brushing these thoughts away. So you're raising your hands and you're saying Allahu Akbar, and you begin with your prayer. Now you're in the middle of prayer. Now that you're in the middle of prayer, you're going to be in standing position. You're going to fold your hands. Right hand is going to go over the left hand. There's many different ways to do this. You can hold your wrist, you can hold your forearm, you can hold a little bit more like this, you can do a little bit higher, you can do a little bit here, you can do a little bit lower. What you're not going to do is you're not going to do like some sideways thing, or you do some weird thing like this. Basically, right hand over left hand on your torso somewhere, or on your chest, somewhere in between, right below the navel, or somewhere around the chest area. All of these ways are fine according to the scholars. And this is something, all of them have been practiced by the Prophet, peace be upon him, in different narrations. So it means that he didn't always pray exactly the same way, and there's been different narrations about what the companions saw from him. So you do that, and you think about what does this mean when you're kind of standing in this position. You're standing in this position, it's a sign of respect, right? They say in psychology, if they stand in front of you like this, right? It gives a different, message. It's like, why is this person standing like this? Right? But if you stand like this in a sense of humility, this is the way people used to stand in front of kings, in front of other people that they admired and respected or even feared or something like that. So this is a stance of humility, that you're standing in front of Allah and you say, oh Allah, I'm here, I'm your servant. And I am here to perform my prayer for you. So you do that, and then you begin with the opening supplication. Okay, the istiftah. There's a few different ones that you can cover. Due to shortness of the time, I'm actually gonna skip this due to shortness of time. So if you know it, you could say Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, or you could do Wajjahtu wajhiya lillah, or you could do whichever one you've memorized, and you begin with this opening supplication. After that, you seek refuge in Allah and you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah from the cursed Satan. And you do this whenever you're going to be reciting Quran. So you're about to start reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. You're going to recite some Quran, so you say this. And this doesn't need to be said out loud, this is going to be said to yourself. And then you say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. And then you're going to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. And you're going to complete the entire surah. When you finish Surah Al-Fatiha, and I think Shaykha might go over the meaning of that. Are you covering the meaning of that? Somewhat, she'll cover it a little bit. Otherwise you can read it in the translation. Then when you're done, you say Ameen. Ameen means, oh Allah, accept this prayer. It means accept. So Allah, I just made this prayer, accept from me. Surah Al-Fatiha is a prayer. There's a dua in it. Who can tell me, who's 14 or under, where is the dua, where is the prayer of asking Allah for something in Surah Al-Fatiha? Yes. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, which means what? Guide us on the straight path. Okay, guide us on the straight path. That's the prayer you're asking Allah within Surah Al-Fatiha, and then when you're done, you say Ameen, accept. Oh Allah, accept this prayer. Accept meaning guide us on the straight path. So you say Ameen for that reason. Some people don't get that. They're just like, Ameen just sounds so cool. And then when the Imam is saying it, it's like, Ameen. I'm going to do it too. Ameen. But think about what you're doing. You just made a dua in Surah Al-Fatiha, and now you're saying Ameen. Inshallah. So we'll take questions at the end, inshallah. Alright, and then you're going to recite some more Quran after that is done. So you get to choose now. You have some flexibility. It's almost like the prayer. Prayer has specific times of the day. 5 prayers a day, and there's times. But within those times, there's a flexibility. You just need to fit Fajr in within a 2-hour time gap. You need to fit Zuhr in within like a 4 or 5 hour time gap. So you have some choice, and you have some structure. Same thing. You're supposed to recite some Quran here. Either 1 long verse or 3 short verses. Right? You get to pick what you want to recite. So some people who have very little Quran memorized, they're just going to recite the same thing. Qul huwallahu ahad, Qul huwallahu ahad, which is okay, but it's nice to memorize some more things. And once you start to learn some Arabic and you understand the meanings behind what you're doing, then you're going to recite things which you choose based upon what's happening in your life. So you've had a really bad day. Things are going really tough for you. You're going to pick some verses about, Surah Yusuf, about the difficulty that he went through. And when you're reciting that, you're like, I'm going through something similar, I'm okay. One time, I met a person, they did something really, really bad. And it was in the masjid. I was just so frustrated. And the person was acting like a complete hypocrite right after they left the masjid. And you can bet that I was reciting verses of Surah Al-Munafiqun, right? Directly in the prayer about the hypocrites and things like that. And it just reminds you of like, this is what people have been through. This is what Allah warned us about. So you get a choice. You get to choose the type of things that you want to recite because it has an effect on your prayer. It has an effect on your own state of mind. So we'll leave it right here, and I will pass it over to Shaykh Haifa to continue, and then we'll move on to the rest of the motions of the prayer, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك